Hi folks, it's good to be with you. Today's talk is Authenticity in the Age of AI, Revisiting Our Humanity. I'm Dickson, and we're going to be diving in with a story, really. We'll start off with a story of my surgery, where I'm going to walk through what I experienced. Last year I had 4 eye surgeries, and my first one, I found myself sequestered in a dark room with no one to talk to except for ChatGPT. In many ways, as strange as it might sound, AI did a better job of meeting me in my place of need than the surgeon's office that I routinely visited. Yes, I needed that surgeon, but AI did some things that the surgeon wasn't able to do. So these clinical visits were efficient, but did feel a little bit detached. And as I was there, it reminded me a little bit about how higher education too often starts to feel transactional for our students rather than transformational. Too often as educators, we ourselves are disconnected not only from our students, but from our own humanness. And perhaps this AI moment is an opportunity to revisit that. In this talk, after telling a story and after doing an overview of the state of AI in 2025 and its implications for teaching and learning, we will examine how we can reclaim our humanness and authentic practices in the age of AI. I want to, before going any further, just say a thank you. Most importantly, to Dr. Jeffrey Alexander, who is our president here at Truckee Meadows Community College. But also I want to thank the vice president, Mark Pearl, as I said before, who is our vice president at Truckee Meadows Community College, and Cheryl Jones, who's done a lot of work making this event happen, is our current chief technology officer. Also, Austin Hood, who is the new chief technology officer stepping into this role. I want to thank you both. And big thanks to Fred Locken, Professor of Political Science, and of course, Gina True, who made all of the details happen at this large event. So thank you, Gina, for the work you always do. A note on authenticity and humanness as we get started, and a note on Reno, which is a city I've come to love. My arrival last night, I get off at 10 or 30 or whatever it is, and before I get off the jet bridge, I get 10 kindnesses. People say, have a nice evening, take care, I hope you have a good stay in Reno. And that continues my whole way through, all the way through the airport. When I get to the drugstore later that evening, the same thing I experienced. I asked a question, a person in line next to me has a suggestion on where to get some food. Somebody else has a suggestion on how to get a specific cable I need. Everyone is super friendly. And Reno has always been that way for me. You all know kindness. And this is the I guess it's the Walgreens that I was at where they were playing music. I clicked on my audio AI tool and said, okay, what song are they playing? And they were playing Toccata and Fugue in D minor by Johann Sebastian Bach. And it was a great way to get started as I arrived in the city. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this idea of humanness, which you're already experts at, to revisit, well, how can we improve our humanness and our authenticity in the physical classroom for our students, ironically or strangely enough, through a story about surgery. So again, this is a quick story about my experience with surgery that's intended as a lens on teaching and learning. I'll start off with the incident. So with my first surgery, 3 days before the surgery, I was giving a talk in Detroit, and I saw this cobweb experience. It was like little thin blue lightning, and I didn't know how to really picture it or present it or explain it. So I pulled up my phone and I said, hey, give me a picture where I'm at this specific college in Detroit and I'm in a classroom after I've done the keynote and I'm doing a conversation. And it didn't get everything quite right, but it got the visual effect precisely. This is exactly what the blue lines look like in my eyes. It was very helpful for me to be able to say, okay, this, at least I know that this is what I saw. Even if nobody else could understand it, now they could. My wife could understand it. My doctors could understand it, etc. Oh my goodness. It's taking a second. Okay, so this is the more recent version that I did 2 nights ago using Sora. Sora is a video creation tool that is generally used for slop right now. It may change. We may see educational uses of it. But I said, let's go ahead and create a video version of the same thing. So you'll see this in a moment.
The AI whirlwind. I call this the urgency of play because, does anyone see blue lightning? Is that a Detroit thing?
Sounds like a you thing.
So that was a video I created with a short prompt. It's intense to see how quickly we're able to create new content, whether it's visual content, video content, audio content, using our likeness, using our voice prints, using our video prints. Things are moving quickly. But moving back to our subject for today, I decided to drive south after that happened to visit my parents. And as I drove south, little black dots appeared. And it was not floaters, it was substantive black dots. And I didn't know how to sort of describe it until I used AI to create the image. I also have felt this experience like a black curtain coming over my eyes. And it was kind of, it was actually both the lower left corner and the upper right-hand corner. But I wanted to have something that could explain what I was experiencing. When I arrived in Tucson, the doctor said, okay, you're going straight into surgery. But of course, it was 4 o'clock, and the place where I was going to get surgery might be closed by the time I got there. So I got there, they were closed, I ended up having to go home. Next day, I came in, and the doctor asked, do you remember hitting your head on anything? And I was a little bit disoriented, of course, because I'm going in for surgery. I said, no, I don't think so. He continued talking. I said, wait a second, there was this time 2 months ago at 3 o'clock in the morning in pitch dark when I'm walking through the hallway to go use the restroom, and I bumped my eye on the bookshelf, that top ledge of the bookshelf where I was trying to squeeze too many books into our house. And there's a bookshelf right by the entrance to the bathroom, and I hit my head on it and I fell down, and I laid there for 20 minutes. He said that must have been it. That's all it takes sometimes to have a detached retina. Anyway, I tell my doctor, please knock me out. Next scene. And because I get jumpy, I get squeamish. So if you put Visine, even if I watch a commercial with Visine, I get watery eyes. Whenever I put eye drops in, I sort of jump. I'm reflexive. So I said, please knock me out during the surgery. He's like, okay. They didn't knock me out. They only partially knocked me out. And I jumped off the table during the surgery, and I nearly tackled the doctor, according to the doctor. And I was like, okay. And then he joked and said, well, we should have knocked you out. So that's life. We move forward. That's the story of the surgery. What matters here most is the story of recovery. So you see the kind of space that you've all been in when you're in the doctor's office. Sometimes you get some diagrams on the wall, something to look at, but it's designed as a space that might not be the most conducive to feeling like you're going to heal. There's a picture of myself sort of processing how I felt at the time, needing to sit still, needing to sit in the dark, needing to not do much of anything. It's an image of the pain that I felt. Again, difficult time to explain the pain, and so I said, please superimpose a fist on a head to explain what the pain felt like. Also, I started getting brow aches for the first time. That was an issue. Again, this is on my own at home. I would come into my doctor and explain, and they would be like, okay. But it's kind of an assembly line. They move quickly. They have a lot of patients they need to get to. I would want to explain sometimes, okay, if I push in on this side of my eye, the rest of my eye relaxes. Or if I cover this side of my eye just with my finger, I feel like my eye opens up and it just sees better. I would have these conversations regularly with a doctor, and the doctors would say, well, that's probably just a you thing. Interestingly enough, when I asked ChatGPT about it, it said, well, no, there is information that suggests that when you do reduce your field of vision, it can be good for your eyes. And I followed that up with other doctors who confirmed that. But I was using ChatGPT basically to document all my symptoms as I moved through. It was difficult being someone going through surgery-related recovery. It's even difficult reading the bottle. Sometimes they don't set things up for patients, and in a similar tone, they don't always set things up for students. So quick visuals, I documented my process. My bubble disappeared slowly. I would have different symptoms, like, okay, I had small blue flourishes of light that would come in, and I documented every symptom every day, what happened throughout the process, just using mainly voice to text. This is an example of what it created, which was precisely what I saw at one point out of my right eye. Also very useful to be able to explain my story. This is my experience when I'm coming into the space. Generally, you've got doctors looking at this information, talking to their lead assistants, sometimes using a lot of acronyms that we don't understand, like what is an IOP of 3 or an IOP of 48? And I had both of those at different points. What does IOP even mean? What are all the buzzwords and the medicines that are being mentioned? As I walk through these experiences, again, you can see the bubble starting to disappear towards the end. This is what it looked like with just blur, which made it clear that I did need to do a cataract surgery after this one because the blur persisted even when the bubble was gone. Throughout the experience, I would use AI to talk to it, saying, hey, I need to sleep, play some music for me, so it would generate that. But also, I would talk to my AI bots like Chad or River. I gave them names, and they would load up, and I would have conversations in the dark when everyone was gone, and I needed someone to talk to. Now, again, why is this story important? What I realized is that sometimes, at least with the experience that I had, I felt like I was being moved around a conveyor belt. You come in, and you can see by this diagram that I created, you get checked, you get moved to the next room, you get moved to the next waiting room, you get moved to the doctor's room, you get moved to the waiting room again sometimes, then back to the doctor's room, then to the checkout. It feels like an assembly line where you're being moved through a space very efficiently, but sometimes in a way that feels a little bit detached. And I thought, okay, well, maybe there's a good parallel between what I'm experiencing today and what sometimes is not working in higher education, that AI perhaps is helping us call attention to say, well, maybe we need to change some things right now just to improve the way colleges work. Here's another visual of the flow chart, you could say, of the default user experience for college, moving from your registration and FAFSA and payment to going into one of the modalities, to that syllabus, to then the traditional 1, 2, 3 of exams or papers, and then a final exam. This is a common experience. Does that work for our students? Or do they begin to feel like they are moving along on a conveyor belt with us? So being me, as I drove home that one specific day, I pulled out my phone and did an audio journal. Instead of writing by hand, which I've filled 50 journals filled up with handwritten writing, I've moved towards audio journaling using something called Otter. It records what you say and it captures it verbatim. So I got into my car, pressed record on the button, and I drove home. And as I drove home, I talked to Otter for about a half an hour. And then I took that information and I dropped it into ChatGPT when I got home. And I said, please review this 40-minute transcript, which is a first draft or an extended authoring prompt. Your job will be to take this draft and shape it. And then I'm going to ask you for a second draft that's 10 paragraphs long. So again, I'm reading this out loud just to sort of explain my process. You can see the full transcript that's below it. And I say, okay, ChatGPT, I'm going to go proceed here with a written essay. And then I go on to say, please follow along carefully. I'm going to tell you my experience at the eye doctor today, and we're going to then bridge the idea of a learning journey with the recovery process for retina reattachment. These are the points that I want to get to. And I'm going to actually read what ChatGPT wrote using my ideas and my concepts to generate a kind of a conceptual outline of what I might share. It begins like this. And again, I did revise it using audio prompts to say, well, the first sentence should be this, or you want to make sure to bring in X, Y, and Z. I nearly jumped off the table and tackled the surgeon, or so I was told by my kind surgeon the week I returned from my first post-op appointment. You were right, he admitted, with a gentle smile. We should have put you out completely. Maybe you can put a note in the file for any future surgery, I replied, and he nodded to his assistant. Yeah, please do. And this moment, like so many amidst the surgery and recovery experience, persists in my memory as if it's begging me to use it as a lens for how we approach the classroom. So this is AI writing with my words, my ideas, but using its ideas. It continues to say, today at my latest post-op appointment, I realized that every part of my journey through and through the doctor's office felt analogous to the core questions that we ought to consider as we approach teaching. The sterile smell of antiseptics, the distant hum of machinery, the cold touch of medical instruments all mirrored the emotions that our students might experience in unfamiliar learning environments. So question number one here is, are we truly attuned to the landscapes that our students navigate, both seen and unseen? And then you'll see this example of me jumping off the chair, and question number two follows, how do our students feel the vulnerability that I mentioned in the story, which was, I had to tell you, every time I work with a medical assistant, I'm squeamish. There's no word for this. I'm hyper-reflexive, but that's not even a word. I have to coach them on how I need to heal, just like our students sometimes need to coach us on how they need to learn. And the reassuring nods, those things make a big difference. How do we create spaces where students can be vulnerable with us so that we can help them learn? That's the human side of things. Then another story I continued talking about them talking about, well, one specific thing at the very end of this. I won't read every word of it. They have to hold this thing up to your eye that measures your eye pressure. It's a handheld tool. They also have one that they cart up to you. And the handheld tool, they just come in and they put it on your eye. I will pull my eyebrows apart and say, I'm going to do this just so that you don't have to, because if you put your hands near my eyes, I will jump. And they understand that. Still, it's hard for me. And they sometimes wouldn't even get a reading. And they'd hold up that instrument to my eye and they're like, we're not getting anything. And I remember one nurse saying to me, just take a breath. Breathe in again, exhale. And we did that whole process of just getting recentered, which is similar to contemplative pedagogy for the way we teach, where we realize that students are carrying a lot of stuff in the classroom, whether they're online or in person. They need a way to transition to the stuff we call learning. Can we help them in that process? This nurse helped me get centered enough that I could actually get my interocular pressure measured. And so the question at the bottom of this was, in the rush of our classrooms, do we offer students moments to gather themselves? Do we incorporate mindfulness to ease their anxiety before a test? We had some nursing faculty at our college who actually lead her students on breathing exercises before a high-stakes certification exam. But it's thinking about these human pieces as we move forward. I continued walking down the hallway, and you'll see here a series of questions relating to, just like in the medical space, are our teaching methods accessible and accommodating? Or a parallel question, do we give opportunities for students to share what their needs are at the very beginning of the semester? I want to share more with my doctor, but they're busy. And I get that. But especially at the higher ed level, how can we get to know our students and what their needs are at the start of the semester so that we can be more perceptive and responsive to their unspoken needs? Another question is relating to the language we're using. I think he mentioned something about cataracts. It freaked me out. Like, what is cataracts? And I felt a little bit insecure, and I decided to ask. I guess I don't have always the... It's a help-seeking behavior thing, and I'm okay with feeling like I'm ignorant and asking. Some people really are not, and they would rather not ask. Anyway, I asked. Parallel question happens in our classroom. Students don't always want to ask us. So they will go to AI or they'll go someplace else. But how do we make sure they feel comfortable asking us a question relating to the jargon we're using in our classroom? Another parallel question, the doctor said to me, just chill out. Don't try to do anything. Don't try to take any vitamins. Don't try to do whatever. Just do nothing. Be lazy. And I was like, I'm not lazy. This is kicking my butt. I didn't say that, but that was what I was thinking. And I think I said something like I'm being resilient, because it's hard lying on your side for hours trying to stay sane and stay positive and believe in your whatever's next. How do we recognize and validate the resilience of our students in the face of what they struggle? I've seen this with my face-to-face and my online students. They're going through a lot. They've been evicted, they're going through divorces, etc. They're taking a condensed course, and they've hit a bump. And how can we be flexible with them and adapt with them so that they can stay on the path and finish the course? Those are the kinds of things that this got me thinking about. So when I think about authenticity, all of these moments, all of these plot points through the story felt like, okay, maybe we can do better in terms of the way that we have an assembly line experience within medical establishments. Maybe we can, but we definitely can do it in higher education. We can think about patient-centered care in medical spaces, but we can also think about student-centered learning and think, okay, well, how can we really angle this around the students as being the most important user or person that's experiencing what we're trying to create? I remember commiserating with another person in the space about cataract procedures. Very helpful, just kind of eased my nerves. And then the parallel question is, how do we facilitate peer spaces so that students can commiserate or imagine or plan together or work together in ways that don't feel like they're faking it or calling it in or just doing 3 responses in a discussion feed that could be simulated, unfortunately, by AI. How do we create experiences where they can be authentic with each other? Next piece, another example was just asking my doctor to renew prescriptions, because I wasn't in the habit of that. So I hesitantly asked, hey, can you renew my prescription? And so similar question to the previous one, how do we create a safe space to promote help-seeking behaviors in our classroom or peer support spaces within our classroom? These are the kind of questions I want to leave you with as the introduction. It's also the financial stuff. I remember one day, the doctor said, copay visit, it's a post-op. I had the exact opposite experience another day where they gave me a bill right upon arrival. And I almost, like I could swear that my intraocular pressure went up as soon as they started off that day that way. So in the same context, are we actually conscious of the financial and emotional burdens in the Maslow sense of the baseline needs that every student needs? Are we aware of what our students need and what's helping them succeed? How do we minimize any obstacles that might get in the way of their educational journey outside of the classroom? What can our role be there as a college and as instructors? Furthermore, the doctor extended his hand once, and it felt really good. I'm a human being, and it was just nice to have a handshake with my doctor. He didn't take off his gloves. He didn't have gloves on. I just shook his real hand, and it was like an acknowledgement of the journey that I was on. And then I thought, okay, well, what is the online or the face-to-face equivalent here in terms of how do we make sure that we have that point of connection with students' psychosocial needs, a virtual hug or a handshake or some kind of pat on the back that says, I see you. I'm impressed with your growth and your persistence. Stay with it. Even if it's, I haven't seen you online in the past few days, send me a quick text message. I just want to see how things are going. Something that isn't a formal letter from the doctor saying you need to pay this bill or do whatever. It's not a transactional piece. It's just a, hey, I'm here for you. I see that this is hard. Stay with it. So final point that I'll share, I think there was like 10 points today I generated from this 40-minute monologue that I did. That it was looking at a closure piece, which is, I guess as we're moving forward, learning, much like healing, isn't about procedures. It's not necessarily about the content as much as we want to be oriented towards competencies and align with outcomes. It's about connection. It's about empathy. It's about being attuned to the needs of others. I was so pleased when AI generated a summary of my thoughts in a way that was coherent and concise, and it said it to me as audio because I couldn't look at a screen at this point. It's interesting to think about AI as an assistive tool as well. It was and continues to be for me. So moving forward, again, my process, just so you know the process, I began as an audio journal. I used ChatGPT 4.0 to revise and adhere to my voice and structure. Sometimes I will say, verbatim, please. I only want to hear my words. Don't change anything because I need you to really be a transcriber and a captioner and thread my words together, but don't add anything of your own at all. Anyway, going back to this process, my doctor's a good doctor. He's actually a kind doctor. My doctors, I should say. But it made me think, okay, well, maybe something is not really working in our medical industry in terms of how we experience and support the person going through care. If they feel isolated, if they feel like they can't talk to you, if they feel far away, if they feel alone. Same thing can happen with our school system. And looking at humanity in particular, you know, we say we should return to our humanity, but I would argue that right now, maybe we're not doing as good as we could be when it comes to humanity. Maybe our humanness needs to double down right now, especially in a time where the workforce is going to be asking, okay, well, what can you do that AI cannot? What can you do with or without AI that AI alone cannot? Can you connect with your clients, with your peers? Can you communicate? Can you do oral? But there was a time in which another technology was kind of disturbing. Well, Plato, to be particular, who was concerned that we'd be losing our memory and our ability to do oration with this new technology that was really disrupting everything, which was writing. The idea that if we wrote everything down, maybe it would corrupt our ability to remember or our ability to speak, and maybe things do have impacts. At this moment, as we return to this question of our humanity and our human practices, I would argue that perhaps we need to return to thinking about what does a more human practice look like for demonstrating knowledge, including maybe oration, maybe presenting our knowledge with video, etc. Let's continue. So We're going to pivot now to the state of AI, and we're going to take a quick look at what's been happening. From your own thoughts, again, the whole angle is, why does this matter for teaching and learning? So we'll begin with a sort of participatory thing. Just to imagine this image from Las Vegas when I was on my way here. I wanted to get something to eat. There was nobody there, but there was a bot that had the message that said thinking. And so I went ahead and purchased a green juice with a bot. You've probably seen that. In the bookstore, I saw a book by Harari. I did not see one by Jeffrey Hinton, but maybe you've been seeing these kind of books that are looking at the concerns about AI. I also saw a bad news piece that's been persisting in the news relating to fatal misuse of AI, if you will, a lawsuit that's being brought against ChatGPT relating to a suicide. I should note that while there are issues like this that are very real that we need to address, we also have stories about AI that is preventing suicide ideation, among other folks. So it's complicated. If you want to know more about these kinds of ideas, you can learn about this through my blog, which is Curious Tendril. There's my QR code to connect with it. But I do think it's important to be aware of these ethical issues, I should say. The article on the right, which is called To Those Who Don't Want to Use AI, tries to list off and acknowledge these are a lot of common questions. And it's just a short list of probably like 24. It keeps expanding. It's something that we need to be aware of, and our students need to be aware of so they can make choices about the future of AI. Broader news pieces to be aware of in 2025. I've got 3 images here. The first one is just the idea that AI is coming to your whole org chart, not just your job. The second one says, AI might take your job, and here's 22 new ones around the corner. And the third one is, these jobs will fall first as AI takes over the workspace. So there's a lot of dramatic news hitting the news every day, but there's also research that is backing some of this up. Next page, we see that the weekly workforce, or the use of AI has doubled according to Wharton. There's a lot of news pieces. There's also a news piece that I didn't include here, which is the graduates increasingly feel frustrated that their college did not prepare them for an AI connected workplace. They don't know how to use AI as they leave their colleges. So that's a real question that we need to consider, is what might our role be? Do we need to change our course learning outcomes, et cetera, to help our students navigate the reality that they may be expected to complete one thing with AI and another thing without? And how do we do that in our classrooms as well? So white collar automation is another weird phenomenon to think about, which is that it's predicted that a lot of white-collar jobs will be pushed against in terms of this layer of disruption. With different disruptions, it just has varied, but we'll see what happens. We do see AI being an expectation or it being a requirement. It's two extremes. It's either compulsory or coercive use, or it is abstinence, really. You've got the sort of arc from in the classroom and also in the workplace of no AI, zero tolerance policy, abstinent, you may not use it. And if you do, then you're cheating. Zero tolerance policies. 2, resigned, which is the letter R for ARC, where folks are like, I don't know, and we're just trying to deal with it. I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing. 2, this compulsory model that does not give students any agency or choice around if they have actual moral objections or ethical issues with the use of AI. But in the workplace, we see 2 strange extremes. One from this article you can see is employees are using AI but keeping it quiet. You can also see amidst companies making it mandatory, like Microsoft, or there's a long list of the Washington Post forums of different companies that are requiring AI use. We see employees pretending to use AI, which is the weirdest news piece ever in Newsweek, which means right now our graduates are going to need to figure out how to use AI, sometimes without a teacher. They're learning on the job. This is an opportunity, a golden moment for us to say, okay, well, let's create a space that we can talk about this and have an honest conversation. Other things you'll see that are news related, there's a lot of slop on the web that's either image or text. A lot of our LinkedIn posts are entirely AI generated. It's a strange new world. AI is scraping everything. And then there's folks like the CEO from Cloudflare who says, nope, we're not going to let you do that. You got to pay to play. This kind of tension will continue. There's multiple lawsuits going on between the different AI companies and various people. and these will persist. Half of the traffic in the web is done by bots, apparently. So this is just a new reality, a new kind of digital literacy that we have to be aware of. We have wearables, so people can wear pins or Ray-Ban glasses and record wherever they're going all the time. You might be recorded just by walking out in public and you don't even know it. And in our classrooms, there are real needs to record that are sometimes accommodation requests to say, well, I need a digital note taker because I need to be able to take notes. And there's also the reality that some students need to, actually a lot of students want to go back into their notes and say, okay, well, what did I miss? It's sort of like taking digital marginalia on a live textbook, but they're going back to the notes. They want to revisit that content or the Zoom recording and build their skills. But then there's sometimes also other issues like, well, are students safe enough to be able to share if they know they're being recorded? So making sure that the moment is right when you actually turn off the recording so that you can share things you need to. This is the whole realm of ambient AI, where it's picking up everywhere all the time, for better or for worse. So again, going back to AI note takers, some of these will join your Zoom meetings or your Google Meet meetings because they're connected with a calendar. Some of them, like Granola, you don't even need to connect them with your calendar, and they will automatically pull all the computer audio anytime there's a meeting happening, so you don't necessarily know if a recording is happening when you're inside a Zoom or a Google Meet. Just something to be aware of. So other phenomena that are important to be aware of are just key logging. We see keystroke capture, whatever you want to call it. It's when everything you do on the computer is being captured. We see it happening in the schools. We see it happen in the workplace. We see it happening by governments, local and abroad. What does that mean in terms of how we use technology? We see a new trend also connected with agentic AI. There's been some news pieces just to be aware of. It's not a common concern, but it's plausible that students could use or build an agent that autonomously acts as them in order to log in and complete assignments on their behalf. Right now, it's plausible for agentic AI to plan a trip for us and not only log into those websites, but purchase tickets for us. That's a new space we're going to in terms of agentic use. People say at ASU GSV as well that in general, bots are this year, bots are last year, agents are this year. So you can build a custom bot, but now we're moving towards being able to build custom agents. It's moving quickly. Again, it's going to keep moving quickly. Our main goal is, what is our place as this technology continues to move as educators? How can we do what we do best, which we are experts at, which is supporting student inquiry and student learning and reflective practice. So there's the whirlwind. Hopefully you can get the idea of why all this stuff is relevant. On the right, you see an image I made back in 2023 where I asked DALL-E, which was built into Microsoft at the time, give me a Wizard of Oz whirlwind with computers swirling. Because that's what it felt like then, and it feels that way every week, to be frank. The pace continues to go up. So how do we reclaim our humanness and our authentic practice in these times? That's the core question that we're talking about today. Most importantly, there's this question of the transactional. Maybe we're not transactional, but maybe we are in some ways. Maybe there's a place for some things where we need to check off and feel like there's alignment and there's this, that, and the other for ensuring the completion of one course allows for a pathway into another. That's fine. But what does transformational teaching look like amidst all of our alignment practices? What does it mean to help students really grow into themselves and into their careers in our classrooms, moving from transactional to transformational? What specific technologies can we use that will support this? As a next example, I've written 2 articles that were both before AI came out that reflect technologies that matter in a time of AI. On the left, you see social annotation. Tools like perusal and hypothesis, I'll bring up in particular, allow us to take notes in the margin. Even right now with digital textbooks, it's very hard to take notes on the side of any text. And that's what these tools allow for. It allows students to take notes on the side and have discussions with their peers that is accountable to the actual text that they just read. They're not just inventing a conversation or asking AI to speak on their behalf. They have to go in and select the text, make a comment, tag a peer, respond to their peer. It's social. There's positive peer pressure inside the space, and we know that they're doing text-dependent inquiry. This, is called social annotation. It can be done with text, with audio, and now with video as well, where they have a discussion at this part of the video and there's a timestamp, and you have a discussion about that part of the film as it emerges, right, when you experience it. On the right, I have an article called Press Play Isn't a Teaching Strategy, Why Educators Need New Methods for Video. The article on the right is at EdSurge, the one on the left is at Campus Technology. But the one on the right suggests, okay, we can't just push the VCR card into the classroom and press play. We need to introduce what we're doing. We need to close out with something that's a meaningful application of what we just watched. And in the middle, we have to find ways to interact. And we have many new tools now that allow for interactive video at your school and elsewhere. There's something to be thinking about is, well, if I've got video, how can I move it from being active to passive? And when I do the workshop college-wide with faculty looking at how do we redo our curricular pieces, that's a core question I'm asking, which is, if anything is passive, whether it's reading, go read this chapter, go watch this video, how might we make it interactive so that we can see their process for reading, their process for learning, even their process for writing? How do we find ways to capture and understand that process? Because product is easy to hack. Let's keep moving. So a closing note on the images. All the images that I used in today's presentation, I used various AI tools, or at least a lot of the images. More recently, Gemini, which I'm using Gemini 2.5 Pro in this example, allows me to remove images from existing images. So you'll see, like the first iteration, it had for some reason a face in the front of the room that was not there. I asked it to remove that image, and it removed the person in the back of the room, and it removed both of them. Why does this matter? Just to note that technology is moving quickly and things are changing. I want to close now with questions and answers for the room, and I also would just welcome you to send questions to me directly. I do have a QR code in the upper left-hand corner to give me feedback on this session to see what was useful and what we can do more of. On the second page, I just want to stay connected with you. So please send me your questions, and you can send them through the form, or you can send them to me directly via social or via email. Or you can connect with me and send me a message through Substack, where my blog is located. Here is my QR code for LinkedIn, which is the best way to reach me. Just connect with me or follow me there and send me a message through LinkedIn. I've also got my email, if you prefer email, which is reeddicksonux@gmail.com, or anywhere on social media at reeddicksonux. I don't use social media very often, but I do check it from time to time to see if messages have come in. So if you prefer a specific social media tool, just reach out to me and pose questions, share ideas, share challenges, share things that have surprised you. And I can't say enough, as you dive into this question of how do we approach AI in this time, the most useful question I think we can pull back to is, well, how can we stay relevant? How can we continue to be what AI is not? What does it mean to be more authentic, to be more human in this time? This is our new asset. This is our new selling point, is what can we do that AI cannot? And it might be what can we do with AI that AI cannot. But in any case, what do we bring to the table? This is a question I want to leave you with that I hope you continue to dig into with all of your teaching and learning. Thanks so much.